Hello and welcome to The Explainer. So if you've ever found yourself just drowning in a sea of articles, research papers, and sources, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've done all the hard work, you've done the reading, but now what? How do you actually turn that giant pile of information into a sharp, coherent argument that makes you sound like a real expert? Well, that's exactly what we're going to tackle today. Okay, let's be real for a second. Does your writing sometimes feel, well, like this? Kind of just a list of summaries. You know, you're hopping from one source to the next, but your own voice gets lost in the shuffle. It's a super common trap, and it's basically what separates a simple book report from a truly powerful argument. So the whole goal of this explainer is to give you the tools to make that big leap. We're going to go way beyond just listing what other people found and start actually connecting those dots, creating brand new insights that are all yours. By the time we're done here, you'll see exactly how to weave different sources together to build a really compelling story. Now, to get there, we really need to get a handle on two fundamental skills. You can think of them as the one-two punch for taming your research chaos: analysis and synthesis. Let's break down what they are. It really boils down to two totally opposite actions. Analysis, that's all about deconstruction. You take one source, a single article, and you pull it apart to see how it ticks. What's its argument? What's its evidence? Synthesis, on the other hand, is all about construction. You take those pieces from all different sources and you build something totally new. A new perspective, a new argument, a whole new idea. So before you can build anything, you need some solid bricks, right? That's why we have to start with analysis. This is the foundation. It's absolutely crucial. You can't possibly synthesize ideas if you don't really deeply understand the individual sources first. This is level one. Think of it like putting a single article under a microscope. Before you can even think about how it connects to anything else, you first have to understand it on its own terms. What was it trying to do? And honestly, how well did it do it? And here it is, your practical toolkit for analysis. When you're reading a source, you should be asking yourself these questions. What's the core problem the author's trying to crack? Does their data actually support what they're claiming? What did they overlook? Answering these questions for every single source gives you those high-quality building blocks you're going to need for what comes next. All right, so now that we've got our bricks all sorted out, it is time to build. Let's level up to synthesis. This right here is where you stop just being a reporter on what other people have researched and you start becoming a creator of new knowledge yourself. Oh man, we've all seen this, and let's be honest, we've probably all written this at some point. It's that classic laundry list approach. It's organized by author, not by idea. And sure, it proves you did the reading, but it doesn't prove you actually understand the conversation happening between all those different readings. This is exactly what we want to get away from. Now look at this. See the difference? It's such a powerful shift. Instead of just listing authors one by one, you lead with the idea. You're telling your reader the big takeaway first, and then you use the sources as your evidence, as your backup. Suddenly, you're the one in control of the story. And this is exactly why synthesis is, well, it's kind of an art form. You're searching for connections that aren't spelled out for you. You're seeing the forest, not just the individual trees. It's that aha moment when you step back and you ask, okay, what's the bigger story that all these separate sources are trying to tell me together? Okay, so how do we actually do this? I know it can feel a little abstract, so let's make it concrete. I'm going to give you 4 practical techniques you can start using right away to synthesize your research. Think of this as your personal toolkit for building insight. We've already kind of touched on grouping by themes instead of authors. The other big moves are actively hunting for patterns, sorting your sources into what I call conceptual buckets, and then using a really simple but powerful tool called a synthesis matrix. Let's take a closer look at these. This means you have to be an active reader, not a passive one. As you're going over your notes, look for the relationships. Where do different authors agree? Where do they totally disagree? And this one's key, what is nobody talking about? Where are the silences? For example, maybe you notice that early studies all focused on one thing, but the newer stuff has shifted its focus completely. That's a pattern. And that, my friends, is an insight. Here's a fantastic way to organize your thoughts. Instead of just a list of authors, create buckets based on ideas. So you might have a bucket for all the studies that used a certain method, or maybe a bucket for all the research that focused on a specific group of people. This lets you compare and contrast your sources in a much more meaningful way. And this is where a super simple tool can make a world of difference. This is a synthesis matrix. Your sources go across the top, and your key themes, your buckets, go down the side. Then you just go through and check off which articles talk about which themes. And boom, all of a sudden you can see everything visually. You can see, oh look, articles A and C both hit on theme 1, while only B and C talk about theme 2. You can spot the gaps and the overlaps in a single glance. It's a game changer. You know, when it comes right down to it, this is so much more than just a writing technique. It's really a fundamental shift in your mindset. You're moving from being just a collector of facts to an architect of ideas. And I think a little analogy makes this perfectly clear. Think about an annotated bibliography. You know, that list where you summarize and critique each source one by one. That is pure analysis. It's like walking through a plant nursery and carefully writing up a descriptive label for each individual plant. It's useful, it's necessary, but it isn't a garden. Synthesis, that is designing the whole garden. You're the one deciding which plants will look beautiful next to each other, which ones will provide shade for others, and critically, you see the empty patches of dirt where something new needs to be planted. You are creating a beautiful, functional, coherent whole out of all those individual parts. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Your job isn't to be a passive tour guide, just pointing at things, here's this, here's that. No, your job is to be the expert narrator who tells the story of the entire museum, how all the pieces connect, what the big ideas are, and what it all means in the end. And this is what that expert narration actually sounds like when you write it. You're showing a general trend. Taken together, these studies suggest X. You're pointing out a conflict, though there's a lack of consensus about why. And then you're paving the way for future work by spotting a gap. This signals a need for further inquiry into Z. You're not just reporting on the conversation, you are directing it. And really, that's what this is all about. Analysis gives you understanding, sure, but synthesis? Synthesis gives you a voice. It gives you the power to stop just consuming knowledge and to start actually contributing to it. So after you've taken everything apart and you've put it all back together in your own new way, there's really only one question left. What new conversation are you going to start?